It seems that talk of a housing market crash has been with us since the onset of the pandemic. But rather than crash, the market went on a historic run. And then last year, as mortgage rates rose rapidly, the talk of a crash grew louder once again. The idea was that rising mortgage rates would cause buyer demand to evaporate and home prices would come crashing down. Now, while there was a correction and home prices did come down, and how much they came down really depends on where it is that you live, we can't exactly call it a crash. Now, you may have seen talk of foreclosures came into the headlines once again over the past week as the Q1 2023 foreclosure numbers were released. So, will increasing foreclosures finally cause the real estate market to crash? Well, I'm going to dive into the latest numbers and take a look at that right now. Hi, this is Andrew with the Andrew Smith team here with eXp Realty. And without a doubt, foreclosures are on the rise. And some recent information came out from Adam Data. And Adam tracks all the foreclosure activity across the country. And they noted that even though the government did put efforts in to stem the tide of foreclosures, they are starting to happen. As a matter of fact, here's what Rob Barber, the CEO of Adam, had to say. Despite efforts made by government agencies and policymakers to try and reduce foreclosure rates, we are seeing an upward trend in foreclosure activity. This unfortunate trend can be attributed to a variety of factors such as rising unemployment, foreclosure filings making their way through the pipeline after 2 years of government intervention, and other ongoing economic challenges. So, as I alluded to just a moment ago, not surprisingly, as the foreclosure numbers for Q1 came out, the headlines picked up on that instantly. Here's just a few that I saw from Bloomberg and CBS and MSN and Realtor.com. But without examining or taking a look or having some perspective, those headlines can be a little bit misleading. So the first thing I want to point out is that foreclosures are part of every single real estate market. They happen in good markets, they happen in bad markets. Sometimes a house will get foreclosed on because the owners pass away and there are no heirs, and the house just gets foreclosed on at that point. Sometimes the owner can pass away and the property is inherited, but the heirs are out of state. They can't afford the house, they can't afford the upkeep or the mortgage payment. And sometimes out of sight, out of mind, they just let it go. Other times, people get sick, they fall behind on their payments, and a foreclosure filing ends up taking place. All right. Now, considering that the housing market crash last time in 2008 was dominated by foreclosures, any increasing talk of foreclosures and foreclosure activity makes people nervous. And that's completely understandable. And although the foreclosure activity in Q1 of this year was up, I've got a graph for you right here that shows a little bit of perspective. So right here, we're taking a look at all of the foreclosure filings every year in the United States going back to 2005. Those darker red lines that you see, or the bars that you see, are actually years when there were over a million. You can see in 2010, we peaked at 2.9 million foreclosure filings. In 2022, we had 324,000. So a far cry from where we were. But I understand that there was a moratorium in place. But if we look at just the past 6 years, and we compare those numbers, you can see that between 2000 and 2002, there were actually 1 million fewer foreclosure filings than there were in 2017 to 2019. So again, the numbers in Q1 2023 are definitely up. So what were those numbers? So here they are. So again, this is from Adam Data, and there were 95,712 properties with a foreclosure filing in the first quarter of 2023. That nationwide equates to 1 in every 1,400 359 homes. Again, if we take a look at where these numbers are locally here in North Texas, how does this play out? And should we be concerned? So the market here in North Texas, to be honest with you, remains strong overall. And we're not seeing a great deal of foreclosure activity at this time. Yes, there is some, but it's not necessarily an overwhelming number. In Collin County, for instance, there's been 207 foreclosure filings year to date. In Denton County, there's been 372. Now, all of the numbers I've been talking about so far are foreclosure filings. And it's important to point out that not all foreclosure filings end in foreclosure. And here's what I mean. Sometimes people fall behind on their payments. They hit a stretch of bad luck. They could have been unemployed for a little while and they fell behind. And as a result of that, a foreclosure filing may take place. But that doesn't mean the home will be foreclosed on. That homeowner could work out a repayment program with the bank and get everything back on track, in which case the foreclosure will be rescinded. If they completely run out of options and there's nothing that they can do, in many cases, what will happen, considering how much equity has been gained by homeowners here in Frisco and the surrounding areas over the past few years, the property will just be listed and sold as a traditional sale. And there'll be enough proceeds from that sale to satisfy the mortgage, clear all the debts in their entirety. So again, not all foreclosure filings will lead to a foreclosure. And to look at that in more detail, if I go back to 2019, per the MLS, there were 60 foreclosure sales in Collin County and 44 foreclosure sales in Denton County for the entire calendar year. So again, while any foreclosure activity increase is definitely concerning, there's nothing in the data anywhere right now to suggest that we need to be overly concerned or panic. As a matter of fact, here's what Claire Trapasso from Realtor.com recently just said. She goes, there's no reason to panic, at least not yet, meaning there's economic uncertainty. We don't know which way it's going to go. But just like I said, there's nothing in the data currently that suggests a problem. She goes, foreclosure filings began ticking up in late 2021 after the federal foreclosure moratorium ended. The moratorium was enacted in the early days of COVID-19 when millions of Americans lost their jobs to prevent a tsunami of homeowners from losing their properties. And it worked. They did prevent millions of people that lost their jobs from losing their homes as well. So it's only natural that we're going to see foreclosure activity pick up. But specific here in Frisco and the surrounding areas, there's simply not enough homes to satisfy demand currently. We're starting to see multiple offers again. We are seeing homes sell a little bit above the list price, not the crazy bidding wars, but they are selling for above the list price. And it doesn't appear at all as though foreclosures are going to represent any significant increase in inventory here and in most other areas of the country, to be honest. So hopefully you find this information useful, helps provide a little bit of perspective. If you have questions about the local market and you want to discuss them in more detail, please feel free to schedule the call with me. There's a link in the description below to my calendar where you can book a time directly. And the best way to stay up to date on what is going on in your market is through my weekly market report. The data is updated every single week from the actual MLS on what homes are for sale, what is happening with pricing. So there's a link to my Frisco market report in the description below as well. And you can search any city or zip code directly from that report. So again, I hope this information is useful. And as always, please feel free to send me an email or reach out, Andrew at theandrewsmithteam.com, or give me a call at 469-296-5230.